This is the AMD 5700X3D, and for just $200, it might be the best FPS boost you can buy. Let's talk about it. So a little context, I built this system back in 2020, paying full MSRP for every single component you see in here. That includes this $2,500 ROG Strix 3090, which is just insane to think about, especially since the 5090 now is going for less. And at the time, I went with the AMD 5900X. This was like probably the best gaming CPU at the time. Back then, 240 FPS was already insane to think about. But now it's 2025. We've got 480 Hz OLED monitors at 1080 and 1440p. And suddenly 240 FPS doesn't seem as smooth as it once was. I wanted more FPS, but upgrading to a new architecture would cause me to have to buy a new motherboard and new RAM, and that was just going to be very expensive. So I went looking for the most effective solution, and that's when I stumbled upon the 5700X3D. So let's talk about the installation process.
To start, I first drained the reservoir, then untightened this fitting to let air in. This allowed for most of the remaining coolant to make its way to the reservoir. Once most of the lube was drained, I disconnected the two tubes attached to the CPU block. After that, I unscrewed the mounting plate from the back, keeping the block steady since there was still a little liquid inside. With the block removed, I cleaned off the old thermal paste from both the CPU and the block. Installing the 5700X3D was simple. I dropped the CPU into place, applied fresh thermal paste, and carefully screwed the block back in. And this time, no accidents happened, unlike my last maintenance video where I dropped my phone and broke a tube. With the CPU installed, I had to reconnect the tubes and refill the loop. This part was a bit tricky. Some of the fittings didn't want to tighten, even though the tubes looked fine. After struggling with that for a bit, I finally got everything secured. I refilled the loop with the same neon green coolant, skipping distilled water since I had recently changed the coolant. Just to be safe, I wrapped some towels around the fittings in case of leaks, but everything sealed up perfectly.
And with that, the system was back together and ready to boot up. I have to say, this was such a smooth process. Like, I always dreaded just thinking about having to replace anything in here, but that took me around like 30 minutes maybe at most. So now let's talk about the results. Did this CPU swap actually make a difference? Right away, I noticed a huge FPS increase. In Overwatch 2, I was averaging 300 FPS before the upgrade. Now I'm sitting at 360 to 380, even 400, peaking at like 440. That's almost a 100 FPS gain just from swapping the CPU. In Marvel Rivals, I'm seeing a 30% increase, but it's not just about the frames. The temps are amazing. Since the CPU runs cooler, the noise levels are much better. Like, the pump doesn't have to go as hard and the fans don't have to go as hard either. So it just keeps everything so nice and quiet. What's crazy to me about this whole thing is that I paid around $550 for the 5900X. And now I only paid $200 for this guy, and I'm seeing a 100 FPS boost. That's like unheard of, right? Because most of the time, like whenever we want to increase our FPS, we typically have to pay the same, if not more, than our current system. So basically, if I had waited 4 years, I could have paid $200 and gotten way more FPS out of it. So yeah, thank you AMD for this seriously impressive CPU. So was the swap worth it? For me, 100%. I was looking to get more FPS. I wasn't really doing any type of professional work on this computer. This is kind of like my nice to look at gaming PC. So I really don't have the need to have this amazing computer for editing. But also, I would kind of like to know, like, how does this compare to my M2 Max? If you're interested in that somehow, let me know. Drop it down in the comments. But what about you? I would say if you're already on an AM4 architecture, and you want more FPS and don't really care too much about the hit that your professional workload takes, then I would recommend it. but also it's only worth it if your monitor can output this amount of FPS, because if not, you're going to be bottlenecked by your monitor. And these monitors that allow for 480 Hertz at 1080p or 1440 are like pretty expensive right now, so I would probably hold off. But if you have like a 240 or 360 monitor right now and you're just looking to get some extra FPS and you don't want to have to change your motherboard, your memory, and you just want to make one simple change, this is definitely the CPU for you. But yeah, I'm really happy with this swap, and this CPU is going to be here for a while. And with that, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, drop a comment for me to know what you liked about it, and with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.